I was staring out of my office window when the notification flashed across my phone screen. The city skyline stretched endlessly in front of me, glass towers glittering in the late afternoon sun. I had always loved this view because it reminded me just how far I had climbed and how much I had sacrificed to get here. My silk blouse brushed against my skin as I shifted in my chair, the faint scent of coffee still lingering on my desk. I tucked a loose strand of hair behind my ear, tapping my nails lightly against the crystal glass of water sitting untouched beside me. Everything around me screamed composure, success, stability. But my chest tightened when I read the words on my screen. It was an email. From them. My parents. The very people who once looked me in the eye and said, "Leave your house keys, Madison. You're not welcome here." My hand hovered over the phone. The hurt should have dulled after all these years, but even now, the sting of that rejection pulsed like a bruise that had never quite healed. I glanced at the framed photo on my desk, me at 21, smiling awkwardly beside my college mentor at my first internship. I had hidden so many versions of myself since then. Behind polished social media posts, behind polite conversations, behind carefully crafted smiles that never told the whole truth. And now they wanted something from me. I almost laughed at the irony, because they had no idea what was waiting for them. I can still remember the sound of the front door slamming behind me that night. I was 22, barely an adult, but old enough to know what it felt like to be unwanted. It started in the kitchen. Our kitchen, the one with the checkered floor tiles that always felt cold under my bare feet. My father stood by the counter, arms crossed, face unreadable but hard. My mother was pacing, her voice sharp, cutting through me with every word. "You think you know everything, Madison," she snapped. "You think the world will bend for you? You're reckless, ungrateful, always chasing some ridiculous dream." I had been clutching my set of keys in my palm, so tightly the edges dug into my skin. My voice shook when I tried to defend myself. "I just want to build something of my own. Why is that so wrong? Why can't you trust me to figure it out?" But there was no softening in their eyes. No trace of understanding. My father's voice came low, final. "If you want to play grown-up, then go do it somewhere else. Leave your keys. You're not welcome here anymore." That sentence split something inside me. I felt my throat close, my chest ache, tears stinging before I could even blink them back. My whole body trembled, not just from fear, but from the raw betrayal of being told I didn't belong in the only home I had ever known. I turned to my room one last time. The posters on the wall, the stack of half-read books on the nightstand, the faint lavender scent of the candle I used to light before bed. All of it screamed mine, yet none of it could come with me. When I walked back to the living room, my grandmother was there. She had stayed quiet through the storm, her frail hands folded over her lap. As I passed, she reached for me and pressed something into my palm, a small silver locket. Her voice was a whisper, trembling but steady. "Don't forget who you are, Madison. The world is bigger than this house. You'll make it." I held onto those words like a lifeline as I stepped into the night. The air was cold, damp with the smell of rain, and I had nothing but a duffel bag and that locket clutched against my chest. My hands were still shaking, but somewhere in that trembling, I felt the flicker of something new. Resolve. Starting over wasn't glamorous. The first nights away from home were spent in a cramped apartment with peeling paint on the walls and a mattress that barely qualified as a bed. The hum of the old refrigerator was constant, a reminder of how empty the space felt. Some mornings, I woke to the sound of the upstairs neighbor's dog barking, and for a moment, I'd imagine I was back in my childhood room. Then reality would return, the reality where I had no home to go back to. I worked whatever jobs would take me. A diner waitress on the night shift. A receptionist who smiled through exhaustion. I'd scrub floors, stack shelves, and swallow my pride, all while that silver locket stayed tucked beneath my shirt, cool against my skin. But I never stopped pushing toward the dream my parents mocked. I wanted to build something real, something that belonged to me. It was at that diner, somewhere between the clang of coffee cups and the sting of grease burns on my arm, that I met Rachel Donovan. She was a regular, a sharp, confident woman with graying hair pulled into a no-nonsense bun. One night, after noticing me scribbling ideas in a battered notebook between customers, she asked, "What are you always writing, sweetheart?" I froze. No one had asked me that in months. When I finally told her, nervously explaining my half-formed business plan for an online design consultancy, she didn't laugh. She leaned back, gave me a long look, and said, "You've got something there. Don't let it die in that notebook." Rachel became more than a customer. She became a mentor. She connected me with people who could teach me the ropes, gave me advice I didn't know I needed, and reminded me to hold my head up even when I was terrified. The journey was brutal. I worked long nights on a secondhand laptop, teaching myself skills through online courses while the world slept. I doubted myself constantly. There were moments I broke down in tears, staring at the screen, wondering if I was kidding myself. But little by little, things shifted. My first client came through a small job designing branding for a local bakery. The check was small, but when I held it in my hands, it felt heavier than gold. It was proof. Proof that I could earn something from my own talent. One job led to another. The bakery referred me to a florist, the florist to a boutique shop owner, and soon my weekends and nights were packed with projects. Slowly, my bank account stopped looking like a joke. Slowly, I was no longer just surviving, I was building. And yet, I never flaunted any of it. On social media, I kept things vague. Busy with work, I'd post. Or, excited for what's ahead. I never showed the luxury apartment I eventually moved into, never posted about the clients flying me out for meetings, never revealed the contracts worth more than my parents' yearly salaries. Because I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready for them to see me as I was becoming. I wanted to arrive at the right moment, strong, unshakable, before facing the people who once told me I wasn't welcome. The knock on my office door was hesitant, almost timid. I already knew who it was before my assistant even peeked in. "Ms. Clark," she said softly, "there are 2 visitors here to see you. They say they're family." For a moment, my heart stumbled in my chest. I placed my pen down, straightened the stack of documents in front of me, and let a faint smile tug at my lips. The moment had finally arrived. "Send them in," I said, my voice calm, steady. The door opened, and there they were, my parents. My father looked smaller than I remembered, shoulders hunched in his worn jacket. My mother's eyes darted around nervously, taking in every detail of the office. The polished marble floor, the sleek oak desk, the towering shelves lined with books and awards. Behind me, the vast glass wall framed the city skyline like a crown I had earned. Their footsteps were slow, uncertain, as though each step brought them deeper into unfamiliar territory. "Madison," my mother breathed, her voice barely audible. "This place, it's yours?" I leaned back in my chair, crossing one leg over the other. Every inch of it. They exchanged a look, one filled with disbelief and something else, shame. I let the silence stretch, giving them time to soak in the reality. On the wall behind me hung a framed photo of me and Rachel Donovan, the woman who had believed in me when no one else did. Beside it, plaques from industry associations, recognition for the company I had built. Clark Creative Solutions wasn't just surviving, it was thriving, a name whispered with respect in boardrooms they would never step into. Finally, my father cleared his throat. We didn't realize. We thought." He stopped, fumbling for words that wouldn't come. I tilted my head. "You thought I'd be struggling? That I'd come crawling back one day? Isn't that what you were hoping for?" Their silence was answer enough. I stood, walking slowly around the desk. My heels clicked against the marble, each step echoing in the cavernous room. I stopped in front of them, close enough to see the worry lining their faces, the years etched in their skin. "Do you know what the funny thing is?" I asked, my voice steady, almost conversational. "You told me to leave my keys. That I wasn't welcome in your house. And now," I pulled a folded document from the folder on my desk and handed it to my father. He unfolded it, his eyes scanning the lines, his expression tightening with every word. My mother leaned in, her breath catching. It was the eviction notice. For months now, I explained calmly. I've owned the property you live in. Bought it through a holding company. I let you stay, even though you never knew whose name was on the deed.
But now?
Now things are different. The silence was deafening. My father's hands trembled as he lowered the paper. My mother's eyes filled with tears, but not the kind I remembered from my childhood. They weren't angry or accusing. They were something closer to regret. You own our house?" she whispered. I nodded. "I own more than that. This office, the building we're standing in, the contract's worth more than you could imagine. I didn't just survive without you. I built an empire." They both stared at me, as if the daughter they had cast out had been replaced by someone unrecognizable. And maybe, in a way, she had. I let them stand there, surrounded by the life they never thought I could create, before I finally said the words I'd been holding in for years. "You wanted me gone. You wanted me small. But here's the truth. Without your rejection, I might never have grown this big." I let the weight of my words linger in the air, then slowly walked back behind my desk. The leather of my chair sighed as I sat down, resting my hands on the armrests like a judge preparing to deliver a verdict. My parents were still frozen where they stood, the eviction notice clutched in my father's hand. His face was pale, his lips parted as if he wanted to speak, but couldn't find the courage. My mother wiped at her eyes, trying to compose herself, but the shame was written all over her. For years, I had dreamed of this moment, imagining myself triumphant, unflinching, cold. But as I looked at them, I realized I didn't need cruelty to prove my strength. I had already won. "You're probably wondering why I let you come today," I began, my voice calm measured. "Why I didn't just have the sheriff deliver that notice." Neither of them answered, but their silence was filled with expectation. Because despite everything you did, despite the night you threw me out, despite the years of silence, I don't want revenge. I want change. My mother's head lifted slightly, confusion crossing her face. I leaned forward, my tone firm but not unkind. "If you want to stay in that house, there are conditions. Not for me.
For you."
My father bristled. "Conditions? From our own daughter?" I met his eyes without flinching.
"Yes."
"From the daughter you told to leave her keys behind. Here they are." I held up one finger. First, honesty. No more pretending, no more sweeping problems under the rug. If something is wrong, say it. Don't let pride destroy what's left of this family. A second finger. Second, humility. You don't get to mock or belittle the dreams of others anymore. Not mine, not anyone's. You spent years crushing ambition with your words. That ends now. A third finger. And third, effort. You've spent too long coasting, waiting for things to magically work out. If you want to keep a roof over your heads, you contribute. Volunteer, find work, start something new. I don't care what it is, but you cannot stay stagnant. They looked at me as though I had spoken another language. My mother's tears slipped freely now, but my father's jaw tightened, pride warring with the reality in front of him. "You're serious," he finally muttered. "Dead serious," I replied. "This isn't about punishing you. It's about giving you the same chance I gave myself years ago.
To grow.
To change." I could see the words landing. Slowly, painfully, but landing. "You're strong," my mother whispered, her voice cracking. "Stronger than we ever thought." I smiled faintly, though my chest ached.
"No."
"I was always strong. You just didn't believe in me." For the first time in years, there was silence between us that didn't feel hostile. It felt honest. Uncomfortable, but honest. And in that moment, I realized the true shift of power wasn't about owning their house or handing them conditions. It was about me choosing compassion on my own terms, something they had never offered me. The weeks that followed were strange. For the first time in years, my parents began showing me pieces of themselves I had never seen before. My father, stubborn, prideful, rigid, started volunteering at the community center down the street. At first, I thought it was a stunt, but when I stopped by unannounced, I saw him teaching kids how to fix old bikes, grease on his hands, laughter in his throat. It was the first time I had seen him smile without bitterness in longer than I could remember. My mother, who once used her sharp tongue like a blade, began taking small steps too. She joined a local art class, something she had always dismissed as silly. When she showed me her first canvas, a simple watercolor of a tree, it wasn't the painting that moved me. It was the light in her eyes. She was finally creating instead of criticizing. It wasn't perfect. Old habits crept in. Arguments still sparked. But for the first time, there was effort.
Change.
And me? I finally allowed myself to breathe. One evening, after a long day at the office, I came home and set my bag on the counter. My fingers brushed against the silver locket around my neck, the one my grandmother had given me the night I was cast out. I opened it, just like I had 100 times before, and whispered the words she told me. Don't forget who you are, Madison. The world is bigger than this house. You'll make it. She had been right. I thought back to the night my parents told me to leave my keys, the hollow ache in my chest as I stepped into the rain. I thought of every tear shed over textbooks, every rejection email, every sleepless night spent wondering if I had made a mistake. And then I thought of this moment, standing in my own home, stronger than ever, with a future I had built brick by brick. The irony wasn't lost on me. The girl they told to leave her house keys behind was now the woman who held the keys to everything. I smiled, closing the locket with a soft click. Because in the end, my story wasn't about eviction or rejection. It was about reclamation, about taking back my power, my voice, and my life. And as I turned out the lights and let the city glow through my window, I whispered to myself the final truth I wanted the world to know. I am not only welcome, I am unstoppable.